All right, people of faith, let's take another walk. We're continuing on the subject of music and its inspiration, nonetheless. How it inspires and what direction does it inspire? So what does it open up a portal to another dimension, which it does, but we're going to in depth. We are going into depth or going in depth in depth to explain like how so. Let's say there's different variations of music, right? There's classical music. There's we consider country. We consider soulful. We would consider um, inspirational. That would be considered spiritual. So there's variations of different types of music, right? Ask the question or answer this question: Why? Why are there variations of music or different variations of music? So a person said there's different sounds, and I would ask that person, in what way are they different? The only thing that makes the sound different is what inspires the melody of the song, right? So in other words, that's spirit based. Because a song comes from somewhere that is unseen, does it not? Do you see it before you actually, do you physically see it before you actually produce it? No, you do not. You spiritually see it before you actually produce it. So the person who's listening to it is as a host to welcome that spirit. So like we take on the concept of the inspiration of that artist. Say they're singing country. We would all of a sudden we would have a country type feel within our soul. And once again, the soul consists of the mind, the will, the emotion, the intellect, and the imagination. And we will have a connection with that artist from that point on. So a person may ask, so is that how we connect to someone that we don't even know? Like, actually, yeah, yeah. Their spirit is transferred to you, and you become transfigured into them. In other words, you're a minion, or I don't want to call it. I don't want to describe it as a replica, but you're more so. I don't want to say a clone, but you're offspring of what they produced. So if you let's say for example, if you have one artist that was very influential, yeah, there's several. But if I were to say this, use an example, say Michael Jackson. Out of Michael Jackson, how many artists that benefited off of him or was inspired by him, and you would see what a portion of Michael Jackson inside their music. That's spirit, right? So the question goes back to, why is there different variations of music? Because there's actually only two voices or two spirits or two spiritual realms. There's the spirit of light, which is the spirit of love or spirit of truth. Then there's the spirit of dark, which is the spirit of fear and the spirit of deception, right? Now, the spirit or the realm of, or the reality or the kingdom of darkness, fear, and deception is there to torment. That's why the the words that will be produced from that kingdom will be kill, steal, and destroy. So you have the opposite side of the kingdom, where you have the kingdom of light, where you have love and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. My mind's just drifted somewhere. Truth. My apologies. You have truth, love, and light on the opposite side. Now, somebody say, what do you aiming at. I guess what I say all that to say is that you are the way that you are by words, or the inspiration of the environment of the words that you are up under. It's so like if someone dies, there's a certain type of song that people play to mourn the loss. Now, if that person was of darkness, they will mourn stuff that is things that is of deception. They will mourn things that are of fear based. They will mourn. They would salute, or they would serenade, or they will give honor to that person out of things of deception, out of things of darkness, or things of fear. But if that person was actually of righteousness, they wouldn't be able to play those three types of songs for that individual. So there are two kingdoms that every soul has to decide of which kingdom they're going to be a part of. A person says, like, well, I don't want either. By you saying that, you already made your decision where you are. You just can't see the decision that you were made because you don't want to make the wrong decision, so you try to make yourself split. Your life will be an indication of being split. You ever heard a person have this bipolar, or a person who get migraines? They're torn between two worlds, light and dark. In other words, through the course of the point of the impact, or when a witness or the symptom of the migraine or the symptom of being bipolar kicks in, it has built up, it has accumulated enough information to show itself. A spirit needs a host. We are a spirit. We needed a body. We originally probably didn't. Well, let's say it this way. We originally didn't need a body because we was all spirit. But when Adam died, and what I mean when Adam died, when he ate of the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil, which was the tree that God told him not to eat, it's not the fact of the tree, it's the fact that God told him not to eat. That was the moment of disobedience. He died. It's either you are in oneness with the Most High God, who is light, who is truth, and who is love, right? Either you're in oneness with that on one accord, and you will be walking in light, you'll be walking in truth, you'll be walking in love. You don't want anything of the opposite, right? So when Adam disobeyed God, he died, and fell to a natural state. In other words, he was separated from God, who is without death. And Adam became death because he was separated. Same thing goes for Lucifer. Satan was Lucifer. Satan was beautiful. Well, he was Lucifer at the time. But when he fell from God in disobedience, therefore he became to a lesser state, which means he became fear. He became death. He became dark. Void. Darkness is a place of being called void. So if a person were to say, like, you're a dark person, they said you're void, you're empty, you're blank. There's nothing there. In other words, you're dead inside. So we tie all that to music. Now, if you have an artist that is walking in light, you will see the light in the music because it will bring a rebirth away from deception. It will bring a rebirth away from fear, or it will bring a rebirth away from destruction, or for things to be killed, or things to be stolen. So when we look at the music, when we listen to music, those are portals. Now, once again, it's maybe kind of a little difficult for a person to understand because you are prone, or you are adapted to the natural form. Now, we are talking about different variations of music and the portals that it brings. Each one, let's say, is it called genre, whatever it's called, how it's pronounced. Each one is subject, or has the ability to produce a spirit. And the purpose of it is just that, to produce a spirit. And the point of that spirit is to govern an area. Take, for example, if we were in one part of the world, they may not allow a certain kind of music. Trying to think. All right, people of faith, we are continuing on it. The subject of portals, but particularly, we are talking about music and its influence of going to these portals. Let's say if a person is grieving or they're sad. Now, let's talk about sadness. Why are we sad? Or why do we get sad? Or how sadness come about? Sadness is a familiar spirit. You may have been told of a familiar spirit, or you may have heard of a familiar spirit. But a familiar spirit is a place of torment, or from a place of torment. And a place of torment is without love, or it's without truth. It's without light. It's a place of void. It's a place of darkness. And the Bible talks about there's a pit called Hades. We're known it as hell, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Weeping and gnashing of teeth, it's like your soul is constantly. So like if you're having a moment of sadness. One thing about sadness, while we haven't met, or we haven't faced the judgment of our soul, there's redemption through the salvation of the Lord. So the moment of sadness doesn't have to stay there. But torment, or the pit of Hades, hell, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, which means they are in a place of great agony. Now, is it their body that's in agony? No. Their soul is in agony. So take a person who is, I want to use the word rambunctious, but if that's misused, but take a person who is heavily influenced by pressure, let's say negative pressure. If they're heavily influenced by negative pressure, can you imagine them living like that every day? So they basically, their soul is not at peace. They're being pulled in every which way. So Hades, hell, or the pit, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, is of this nature. So we're talking on the subject of music and how the different variations of sounds, right? Not different forms of instruments, but different variations of sound. Ultimately, there's two spirits, there's two voices. It's either going to be righteousness, joy, and peace. That will be the kingdom of love and truth and light. Or it's kill, steal, and destroy, which will be the kingdom of deception, fear, and darkness. Now, how does music impact or influence those two kingdoms, or two portals for us to enter? So like if you hear a song that has a certain, I don't want to say a certain instrument, but let's use that as the example. For instance, the instrument of a drum. And A drum could be just a regular boom. It's like that. Boom, boom, boom. Right? But what gives that instrument more impact is what inspired to use that drum. In other words, there is a purpose behind using that particular instrument at that particular time. Each instrument is declaring, is positioned inside of a person's soul. Each instrument. Now, before the artist can write something down, unless they're already written something down, and even if they've written something down, they can't just. Today they have like 20 pages of written songs, composed songs. They can't match it up with certain lyrics. With certain beats or certain rhythms, certain melodies, unless it matches up. Other words, we would say it don't fit. How does the artist know? Because what inspired him or inspired them to write what they wrote would tell them this doesn't fit. So they would try to find a melody that actually it will fit. In other words, it would be on one accord. That's how spiritual and tact we are with sound. Now take a person who's listening to this melody. It's either they are already there where the artist is, or the artist is going to lead them where the artist is at. So if the melody is boom, 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 the person who's listening to that is going to have that within their soul. See, the average listener will say, well, they're just boom, 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 boom. And that's it. They think it's just sound. But actually, it's not sound. Those are voices. So like if you have a person who's grieving, mourning or whatnot, they will play a certain type of melody. Why? Because it fits the spirit, or they would say the mood that they are in, but the mood that they are in is spiritually influenced. So what they're spiritually influenced by will impact for us, like the direction, how they will be affected by grievance. But we were originally talking about, not originally, but before we paused, we were talking about sadness. Sadness comes from a place of a familiar spirit. It's a place of torment. But the place of torment is not of light. It's not meant to give you peace. It's not meant to give you joy. It's meant to torment you. It's meant to keep you in a place of misery. We have heard this time and time again, misery loves company. But there's a very particular reason why misery loves company. Misery has to feed. Misery don't like to be around nothing joyous, or nothing of righteousness, or nothing of peace. Why? Because the righteousness, joy, and peace will come to torment the spirit of misery. Is either they will try to get the righteousness, joy, and peace to leave, or they will walk away from the righteousness, joy, and peace. So music that we listen to, it's not just music. It's not just sound. It's on a very, very specific assignment. It's on a very specific assignment. That assignment is to influence. Remember, at the end of the day, the soul is choosing which side that is, through the whole duration of the day, it was choosing a side to wrap up that end of that day. It was choosing the side, either it was the kingdom of light or the kingdom of darkness. And through the many choices that we make throughout the day determines which direction we'll go. So our soul is being prepared for a battle. There's a war of all wars. Now, once we leave this body, we are in position of where we're going to go. I mean, where, of course, ultimately where we are, where we will be for eternity. But even at eternity is going to be a fight. Let's say, for example, we leave the body and we go to glory. We go where there's lightness is, or light is. We are being prepared for an army. We're not going to be in heaven for eternity. For God is going to prepare a new heaven and a new earth. That's just a short stint of a time. Because it was always God's delight that his creation had an environment of his own.